Hello. I am convinced that we will learn today a lot about the relation between music and politics. Today is Gilad Atzmon our guest. The jazz saxophone player from Israel will release his new album in March this year. It is called The Whistleblower, and we are curious what he will tell us about this new album and about politics. My name is Ann-Kathrin and you are watching Audiophile TV. Enjoy. Hello Gilad, nice to have you here for the interview.
Great pleasure on my part.
What do you enjoy more, being a musician or being an author?
I can't decide really because I'm both, and every day I do both. Every day I have a concert, almost every day. And every day on my way to my concerts, I'm touring a lot, I read and write. So, you know, some people have developed DIY inclinations. They know how to change light bulbs. They know how to fix cars, you know. For me, these are the only two things I'm doing. I'm playing music, producing music, writing music, and write my thoughts, philosophize.
But why did you choose the saxophone and did not become a singer? So
I don't
think both
to be a lyricist,
passions.
you mean? You're right, but I'm not so sure that it was me who decided to play the saxophone. It is more likely that the saxophone chose me. When I was 17, I had a serious accident. I was paralyzed for a year, and more or less at the same time I heard Bird with Strings. I was overwhelmed by Charlie Parker, yeah. And I pretty much on the spot I heard saxophone and I started to practice. I practiced, it sounds silly, but probably 24 hours a day. Till the age of 40 I didn't have to sleep much. And within a month, I started to get offers for concerts. I still couldn't move. It was, you know, but yeah, within a month, I realized that I could do it. I was very quick learner.
But did you don't play any instrument before? Has this been the first contact?
I had a clarinet.
Okay.
And
so it is the technique is similar?
The technique is very similar, but I didn't like it very much. Actually, I like the clarinet a lot now, but as a kid it sound too screamy to me. I couldn't really understand to make sense of that instrument. But I guess that I was musical.
But it is interesting that you did not like the sound of the clarinet, but of the saxophone, because some saxophone players have a tone which is very sharp or penetrant.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying that I'm totally pleased with the sound of my saxophone. I all my life I look for this kind of warm and round sound. I believe that in this album I managed to get closer to this sound. And also on clarinet, I wasn't that inspired by the classical rigid sound, and it was only when I started to hear Greek clarinet playing, Turkish clarinet playing, when I picked the clarinet again and started to make sense of it. And I love when I hear myself playing Turkish music. This is what I actually did on the last Pink Floyd album. I'm pleased.
When you played the clarinet, has it been classical music or even already jazz music?
It is very folkish oriented. It is very Turkish, Greek, not klezmer. I don't like klezmer music at all. At a certain stage, I was a very established klezmer player because I'm very technical. So it was very easy for me to gain command of this. I'm not even sure that it's an art form, but this style of music. But again, klezmer was for me too abrasive, too sharp, too harsh, unless you really listen to some great klezmer artists like Gilad Atzmon, whom I always loved. I regard him as a great spirit and a great teacher for me, though I met him once or twice in my life.
I had the honor to have an interview with him, and I love him too.
Yeah, it seems to me a very warm human being.
Yes.
Just impression.
Mine too. So.
Yeah.
But do you think there are similarities between Turkish, Greek, and Hebrew music?
To start with, Turkish and Greek music are uniquely popular in Israel. I myself played for probably 6 or 7 years with the biggest Greek artist who was also in Israel, who was also probably at a certain stage maybe still the most popular artist in Israel, Yehuda Poliker. It is very interesting why Turkish and Greek music are so popular in Israel. More than half of the Israeli population are basically Arab Jews. They are Jews who came from Iraq, from Kurdistan, if there is such a thing, from Egypt, from Syria, from Lebanon. They came to Israel and they were separated from their cultural heritage. They were Arabs. They couldn't celebrate Arabic music. They couldn't even listen to Kulthum, the great Egyptian musician, a female musician, because this would may interpreted by their Ashkenazi European neighbors as betrayal. And they found a way to deal with it. They adopted the Turkish and the Greek music. It was close enough. All the microtonality, all the things that moving between the tones.
The melisma.
And yet it wasn't identified as Arabic. It wasn't seen as a betrayal.
So it is PC, politically correct to listen.
It is political. It's Oriental, Israeli political correct. Yeah, it is a good way to look at it.
So what is the most interesting ingredient in this music for you? Is it the melody or the harmony, the rhythm?
It is a shame that I don't have a saxophone with me. But when it comes to jazz, we are dealing with a lot of notes. This is jazz.
Especially in bebop.
Bebop, definitely, yeah. It's not, and we accept it. When it comes to Arabic music, sometimes it is just about one note. One, and the articulation of this note. We alternate, we move around. And it's the modal, it's the center. The melody is so deep, and that you don't really need an harmonic content. When it comes to classical European music, jazz, rock and roll, but it obviously comes from classical music. We have horizontal and vertical line. We have the melody and we have the harmony, and we have a lot of rules to deal with it. We have only 12 notes. In Arabic music, sometimes between 2 notes you have 12 microtonalities. And it's very hard to learn it. When I started to play this music, I realized that it is not easy at all. It sounds very simple, but when you record yourself, you say, oh my God, it sounds like I heard myself on the clarinet, it sounds like a Jewish tantrum. The time, the space, jazz tune, Charlie Parker, bebop, Dizzy Gillespie, 3 minutes. It got to Coltrane, so 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. In Arabic music, you listen to Kulthum, sometime the introduction to the tune is 50 minutes. Before you hear the first violin kind of, because their sense of time is the time of the desert. And this also shaped my understanding of political thinking. We think of McDonald's wars, fast food. You go into the shop, you pay $3, you get a Big Mac with chips and with fries and Coke, and you get out. No, for them, time is a tribal time. So you American coming here, like 1 month after the second Gulf War, Bush declared the victory or whatever, and look where we are now. Not only that this battle is not concluded, it's just about to escalate, as we saw this week, into a humongous crisis with ISIS and all this mess. And we don't know how to deal with it at all. And this sense of time is deeply imbued in the Oriental, in the Arabic, in the Islamic culture.
And today, for young listeners, 2:30 is enough, and then they stop listening to music.
For sure. As our kids losing their attention span, in the East, we see a counter movement and willingness to dedicate your life to the cause. It's funny to talk about music, which is for me the most beautiful thing, and war, which is the ugliest thing, but I see the connection.
So do you think if we would be more familiar with the other cultures, we could stop some wars, maybe?
For sure. I think that this music taught me how to listen. And it really helped me to understand, first, what is jihad. And it also helped me to understand how much the rest of us don't understand. And by the way, understanding is a process. What I understand now may not reflect the way I understand things in a week or 2 weeks. I'm developing. We are really, really blind. We have developed a unique blindness, which is very painful for me to admit, because as far as I'm concerned, the world that I grew up in, the vision of West, I was raised within, was very different. We believed in goodness. We believed that we know how to make this world better. We believed that the politics is our means to change things. And look at it now. We don't believe in our politicians. We don't believe that they can do things better. We understand that once we were the expression of freedom, and in the last 20 years we were reduced into consumers, and the role of the politicians is just to facilitate consumption. It is very devastating. But it's also very devastating for me as a father, when I think of my kids.
But what I don't understand, you have not been in Israel for more than 20 years now, right?
Yeah.
Why? I think to change something...
To start with, I don't see Israel as the only problem. I see Israel as a symptom of the problem. If you want to talk about it in Germanic terms, we'll have to go back to German philosophers who in the late 19th century, beginning of 20th century, started to talk about the division between Athens and Jerusalem. Athens, the polytheist, many gods, the universal, the ethical, freedom of speech. If you are an Athenian, obviously, as opposed to Jerusalem, the city of the law, the one God, the binary opposition, yes, no, taref, kosher, no ethics. In Jewish religion and in the Jerusalem philosophy, there is no ethics. Instead of ethics, we have 10 commandments. Don't do that, don't do that, do that, don't do that. The whole idea is, instead of me thinking, is it right, is it wrong, should I kill him, should I not kill him, you have a law, don't kill. Rather than you understanding that you shouldn't kill.
But in Quran you also have these
for sure,
laws.
but Quran is, in that sense, is post-Jerusalem.
Okay.
All right? And to a certain state, also the Catholic Church. So those German philosophers realized that in the Western philosophy, we have all the time a battle between Athens and Jerusalem. We're definitely now in a situation, very devastating situation, where Jerusalem is more dominant than Athens. And I would like to see Athens becoming actually the dominant. I think that this is the essence of the Western thinking. So I cannot visit Israel because I don't feel like, and there is no need. I'm a writer. If Israelis want to consume my thoughts, to think, to communicate with me, my books are available, my writing are there. They can write to me. Usually they write.
But your music not, right? You don't.
But even music, I'm sure that everyone can now Spotify and listen
but
to my
not
music,
in
and they
the
can also
store.
buy it. And there are no shops anymore,
Okay.
So everyone can buy it. I had some offers in the past to give interviews in Israel, and I rejected these offers, but now I'm not even against it. I believe that there is a room. I always like to leave an open channel for a dialogue.
Do you play or give concerts in Russia?
Russia or China, you ask?
Yes.
China I've been before. Russia, no. My books were available in Russia. They were translated into Russian. None of my
And well
no-
accepted, I guess.
none of my managers like to work with Russia, but
But then
but I'm Russian, you know. I really love to go there.
But then I don't understand why you don't play in Israel.
As I say, this is something that you have to understand. You probably don't know about me. I don't believe in cultural boycott. I'm against it. There is a movement that calls for cultural boycott to stop academics and musicians. I'm not against the boycott of Israel. I don't have any problem with it. But I think, as I said before, that dialogue, spiritual and intellectual dialogue, must remain open. If I don't agree with you, I still want to hear you. And if I don't agree with you and you can play the violin, I don't have any issue. I would play with Israelis, with Nazis, with everyone who can play this instrument. I don't care about, as a musician, I don't care about political affiliations.
I would not play with Nazis.
Okay, this is your choice.
So, okay. But I feel a strong emotion.
By the way, as a violin player, you wouldn't play in the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra at the time. There are no Nazis anymore, so it's not. It's a theoretical issue.
But then in the 30s, 40s, I don't know if
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is exactly the issue. When it comes to beauty, as an artist, if you produce beauty, I really don't care. I'm interested in your beauty, in the beauty that you produce. I don't care. As I say, in my band, for many years, in the Orient House Ensemble, we were 3 Jews. If I start to judge people by their ethnicity, by their political ideas, I would live in a very, very narrow world artistically. I don't want it. But it's your choice. People are entitled to live in narrow world. It's not my way. I don't care. It happened to me a few times that I played in New York and I ended up playing with Israelis because they are very strong jazz artists. Israelis are a very dominant jazz society.
in music in general.
Yeah, and I played with Israelis. They said, "Oh, you say some horrible things about us." I thought, to start with, it's not horrible; it's the truth. But you know, if you don't agree, you can say, "Tell me what you don't agree." But we are playing, and within a few seconds, we started to play.
But do you understand that people have problems with separating between the political Gilad Atzmon and the musician Gilad Atzmon?
But to start with, people have a lot of problems. You know, we have a lot of problems. You know, look at what happened in Paris in the last few days. It's very, very problematic, and we have a lot of problems. And I don't care whether people have a problem with me. Some people are enjoying my music and hate my politics. Not many, but some people are really interested in my writing and really sometimes they don't even know that I'm a jazz artist because I have a full career. And some people enjoy both, and some people hate everything I do regardless. And this is beautiful.
But isn't it a pity that some people are not listening to your music because of your political opinion?
It's very tragic for them, but this is exactly the issue. You know, when I was an Israeli, don't listen to Wagner. You know,
So you
You know.
can't understand people in Israel who don't listen to Wagner because it is.
Listen, my job is not really to say what is right and what is wrong. I wrote a book trying to understand the Israeli choice. Why do they do things? Why do they are so attached to their suffering and so on and so on? It is. I'm not judgmental. I try to understand it, but I really don't care at all about Wagner views as a musician. As a philosopher, I looked into Wagner views. I understand why. I read actually quite a few texts about it, and it is understandable why he said what he said, the time he said, in reference to his own life experience. I mentioned it yesterday. There was a British jazz journalist. He's a famous jazz journalist who said, John Lewis, he said that Wagner said about the Jews that they're not real artists because they're not creative. They're just borrowing the art of their host nation. So they take from the Germans, they take from the French, they take. And he said, interestingly enough, Gilad Atzmon, at the time especially, is doing exactly that. I was borrowing it. It was time that I was making a lot of collages. And he said, and this is what I liked about him. And I was really bitter, but he was right. This is exactly, I was the Wagnerian Jew. At the same time, some Jews called me an anti-Semite, I really enjoy being a self-hater. I'm a proud self-hater. Being an ex-Jew, oscillating between the two, because you cannot be an ex-Jew and also to claim to be it's a contradiction, being a self-hating Jew and this journey makes my life into a very, very exciting adventure. I cannot think of anyone on this planet who enjoys his life or her life more than me.
Perfect. And maybe your journey will take you back to Israel one day.
I will visit in Israel.
Perfect.
I will visit Israel. When Israel, I promise, I vow to visit Israel when Israel becomes a state of its citizens, when people are treated equally, and I believe that by the time this happens, it will be called Palestine.
We will see, but
Inshallah.
we have to promise.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was a
Thank you
pleasure.
so much. Pleasure. It was fun.
Oh.